Hi, my name is Clarence Johnson, and I want to give a nonpartisan view of voting within the state of Alabama. This is an encouragement for those who are not registered to register to vote. For those who are registered, please get out and vote for the person you best feel represents your views in government. And then for all others, get yourself in position if you don't qualify to register and vote. This brief overview of voting system, voting laws in the state of Alabama will be taken from the state's voter guide, Alabama State Voter Guide, and I will pull it up on the screen now and I will talk through it as I share with you the laws and the encouragements. First of all, this, the voting guide, Alabama voting guide, has a cover letter from Secretary of State John Merrill, who encourages individuals to exercise their right to vote. And if they're at least 18 years of age and meet the requirements, to take time out to review this guide and get yourself qualified to vote. Now, as we go through, you have certain offices under the Secretary of State, but I want to pick up right here with what's on the ballot. At the federal level here in Alabama, we're voting for a one seat in the Senate and seven seats in the House of Representatives. That means your district may be voting during this cycle. And we have also at the state level, the governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, auditor, secretary of state, that's John Merrill's office, treasurer, commissioner of agriculture and industry, and Alabama State Senate, as well as the state house, Alabama Supreme Court places 5 and 6, public service commission places 1 and 2, State Board of Education districts 2, 4, 6, and 8, as well as the court judge, circuit court judges, various seats, and district court judges. Then there is the county elections. The county elections and those offices that pertain to you as in your individual county. Now, there are important dates for the elections in 2022. The primary election will be on May the 24th. If you have not registered yet, you have until May the 9th to get yourself registered, for that's the deadline to register within the primary election. Also, please note that on May the 17th, that is the deadline to apply for absentee ballot by mail. On May the 19th, that's the deadline for absentee ballot in person. On May the 23rd, that is the last day to hand deliver your absentee ballot. And on the 24th of May, those who mailed in their absentee ballots, they must be received by noon on the 24th. So then, that's the primary election. Now, if in the primary elections, two candidates receive about an equal number of votes, that is close to a tie or considered a tie plus or minus 5% or whatever it is, the factor. If there is a runoff vote, please know that the primary runoff will be on June the 21st. And then on June the 6th, by June the 6th, you'll have to be them registered, for that's the deadline to vote in the primary runoff. And so then for the runoff, the last day to get an absentee ballot to apply for it is on June the 14th. The last day to get one in person is June 16th. The last day to hand deliver the ballot is the 20th of June, and then absentee ballots that are mailed must be in by June the 21st. So in November the 8th is our general election. And so on November the 8th, you have to be registered, be registered to vote by October the 24th. The last day to apply for absentee ballot is by November the 1st. And the last day to obtain an absentee ballot in person is November the 3rd. November the 7th is the last day to hand deliver the absentee ballots. And then absentee ballots must be received by noon for those who've mailed them in. So please note this information. You can take this video and back it up as many times as you need. Pause it on this particular page and get yourself acquainted with the rules governing voting in Alabama or in your state. Now, here is another particular item that we need to be mindful of, and that is crossover voting. With crossover voting, that gives you the opportunity to be in one party and vote in another party. But there are rules governing it. And I've highlighted this because effective August the 1st, 2017, the rules change. And if you are accustomed to the rules before August 1st, 2017, you need to pay attention now so that you don't get yourself in a legal bind for violating voting rules. So let's talk about it. If you are a Democrat and you voted as a Democrat or on the Democratic ballot in the primary election, then in the runoff, you can only vote for a Democratic runoff. You cannot vote for any Republican runoff if you voted in the Democratic ballot in the primary election. Conversely, if you are a Republican or if you voted, not so much being a Democrat or Republican, but if you voted in these areas, voted as a Republican, you can only vote in the Republican runoff. And if you voted for a Republican, you cannot vote for a Democratic runoff. Now, I had to change that because you can be a Republican and vote in the Democratic runoff, a Democratic primary. And if you did that, if you voted in the Democratic primary and you're a Republican, you can only vote in the Democratic primary runoff. You cannot switch back to a vote in the runoff of the Republicans. If you are a Democrat and during the primary election voted for a Republican, then you have to vote in the Republican Party. You cannot go back and vote into Democratic runoff, but you can only vote in the Republican Party runoff. Please note that. If you vote Democrat, regardless of which political views you are, you stuck with voting in the Democratic runoff. If you vote Republican, regardless whether you're Democrat or Republican, you're stuck with voting for the Republican runoff. Watch that. That is a big change for the voting process prior to August 1st, 2017. And for those who just starting out, you need to know that if you're a Republican and you have somebody that sound like, hey, this Democrat can best represent me in this primary, then vote for that person. Or if you're a Democrat and you feel that this Republican can best represent me in this primary, then you can vote for that person. Just make sure you stick with, if you voted in the Republican ballot primary, stick with that in the runoff. And conversely, if you voted for the Democratic ballot in the primary election, stick with that runoff. All righty. I think that should be clear enough. If not, the medium that this video is posted on have information where you can contact me or you can again contact the Secretary of State's office for further information. Now, if you did not vote in a primary election or voted a nonpartisan ballot in the primary election, then you can vote in a Republican primary runoff, or you can vote for in a Democratic primary runoff. If you did not vote in a primary runoff, then you can vote for in either party that you choose to. So the crossover rule starts over with each election cycle and only applies to the primary and primary runoff. It does not apply to the general election. And with that, let me say this. Regardless of how you vote in the primary, what this is saying then is that in the general election, you can vote your choices as you desire. Political parties, Democrat and Republican political parties, generally have a voting sample voting ballot that says vote straight Democrat ticket, vote straight Republican ticket. And what that means is when you check that box, you don't have to go seeking and checking other boxes. You accept their assessment as to the value of the people they're suggesting when they say vote straight Democrat or vote straight Republican. However, in the general election, it is your choice. Well, I'll vote for this Democrat over here and I'll vote for this Republican over there. Oh, there's an independent. I think he or she will do what I'm hoping to get done in government, and I'll vote for that one. You can do that. You can pick and choose across party lines in the general election. Caution, do not select straight Democrat ticket or straight Republican ticket in the general election and then go try to pick and choose other people's positions, because I honestly believe, and you can fact check me with Secretary of Merrill's office, I honestly believe that will null and void your ballot. You can't have your cake both ways. You cannot vote a straight ticket and then pick and choose. Those marks will more than likely cancel out your ballot and your vote will not count. Check it out. Call the state office, voting offices under Secretary Merrill. So then, registration requirements. If you are a citizen of the United States, you can register. If you live in Alabama, you can register in this state. If you're at least 18 years old on or before the election day, meaning you can register at age 17, if on by May the 23rd, you will be 18, because the primary is May the 24th. And conversely, going on up to any primary runoffs or the general election, you can register. Please make sure now you watch out for the fact that in Alabama, registration ceases 14 days prior to the election. But if you get registered and your birthday is the day before, you can vote. So, and you can also vote if you're not barred from voting due to a disqualifying federal felony conviction. That's highlighted. Further discussion to come. So, again, here I've just stated your registration is open all year long, except during the 14 days prior to an election and on election day. So you cannot register within that time frame. But again, remember now, if you register before this time frame and you're 17 years old, but you will be 18 the day before the date of voting takes place, then get registered and vote. You also need to keep your registration up to date. If there are any changes with your address, your name, or what have you, then you need to make sure you update your voter's registration, because first of all, you're going to need this iPhoto ID, and it's going to need to match that what's on it with what is on your voter registration. Otherwise, you will run into great difficulties and may not have the ability to vote in that particular election if your information is not up to date. Remember, I talked about the felony convictions? Well, then, if an individual who is barred from registering and voting by the disqualifying federal conviction, you may request to have your rights restored by applying for a certificate of eligibility to register and to vote. And you can apply for this certificate if you fulfill all the terms of your sentence for the disqualifying felony conviction. My apologies for highlighting this in red. I could not remove that red. I do not know why. But for further information, you can contact the Alabama Board of Pardons and Paroles at 334-353-7771 or at pardons.state.al.us. And again, if that's too fast for you, all you got to do is back up the video, put it on stop or pause, and then get that information so that you can get registered to vote. Where and how to register? A citizen may register to vote online at Alabama Votes, no spaces, alabamavotes.gov. And if you have an Alabama's driver license or non-driver identification card. Remember now, non-driver identification cards, like driver's license, must have your photo ID. There are other particular forms of ID that will be acceptable for voting. For instance, a military ID, passports, and others. However, to make sure that you have the right identification card, if you're not going to use Alabama's driver's license, check it out with the state Secretary of State website and ensure that you have what you need. By using, you can register by using the Vote for Alabama app if you have the Alabama's driver's license, or again, a non-driver identification card, or when you apply for or renewing your Alabama driver's license or non-driver's license identification card. You can apply at state, local government offices, and you can apply at armed forces recruiting stations, and you can apply at the Board of Registrar located at the county seat in your voter's county of residence. That's the one that most people will generally use. You can also register vote by mail-in form that's available at the probate and judge and licensing commissioner's office. So then, my friends, this is Clarence Johnson, and I just want to share this nonpartisan view with you. Please remember these dates. Voter registration deadline is May the 9th. If you're in Alabama, you're going to vote in the primary. If you're going to vote in the runoff, the deadline to register is June the 6th. And if you're going to vote in the general election this year, the deadline is October the 24th. I will stop there. And if you have any more questions, comments, or concerns, I encourage you to go to the source. And also, if you contact me, this will be on Facebook, YouTube, my Twitter page. And if you contact me through those mediums, I will certainly be glad to discuss your questions or help you search out the answer to your questions on the State of Alabama Secretary of State website. Also, I will be sending this video out to friends who I believe will submit it in the vein of nonpartisan encouragement, just so we in Alabama can do what the commercial I've seen a number of times says Alabama votes. Have a plum pleasing, wonderful day today. Bye now.